changing careers into social media to working full-time as an influencer was actually really scary because I was leaving something that I was like, I knew it. This is what I lived. This is what I breathed. I felt secure in it. And I knew exactly what to expect. So to coming over to being my own boss, it was really scary. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Miracle Mindset Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Robbi, and today's episode, we are going to be speaking about the big C word. Okay, is this right on camera? C, the C word. So most of us hate it. Some of us love it and we crave it. And a lot of us avoid it, including myself. So I thought we'd be speaking about it today. That is change. Now, change is scary. It's inevitable, but it's also unknown. So we fear it, even though it's not necessarily something we should be fearful of. But the reality is the only thing scarier than change is to not change, because that means we're not growing, we're not evolving, we're not learning, we're stuck in the same situation and circumstance. I was actually reminded of this the other day. Really randomly, I actually got a call from a girl I went to high school with. I haven't spoken to her in years. And when I say everything has changed since I spoke to her, I really mean it. And anyway, she said to me, "Robbi, you've changed." And I just thought to myself, I'm like, did I change or have I grown? You know, there's a difference between change and growth. So today's episode is going to be all about change and how to embrace it and why we should embrace it and changing our mindset around the topic, because it's actually really exciting. And if you look at it from a new perspective and stop being fearful of change, things can really change and fall into place for you. So let's get into that. It was actually really interesting and kind of empowering to have this call with this girlfriend. And, you know, it really made me think I have grown a lot. I have changed a lot, and in a lot of good ways. I think, you know, I've totally grown up. I've totally changed my circumstances. You know, I'm Australian. I'm now living in New York City. So right there, that is a massive change. I moved across the world, which isn't just as simple as a move. It's also all the other things that go hand in hand with that. You know, your change in friend group. We all know how hard it is to make friends as adults. That's not easy. That's a big change. A change in relationship. That is, you know, the fabric of your life. Every little part of my life has changed, including my career. You know, I think I've had probably more change in my life than most, but, you know, we all experience it's something that we all go through, and it can be hard. We don't really speak about how hard it can be. We just tend to avoid it, and we tend not to try to change too much because it's uncomfortable. So for me, I obviously used to do dentistry. That was my passion. I lived it and I breathed it. Cosmetic dentistry, oral health therapy, that was literally what I lived for. I was so passionate about it. And changing careers into social media to working full-time as an influencer was actually really scary because I was leaving something that I was like, I knew it. This is what I lived. This is what I breathed. I felt secure in it. And I knew exactly what to expect. So to coming over to being my own boss, to creating my own hours, you know, it was really scary. And sometimes it still is scary. And I'm like, I look in the mirror, I'm like, girl, what are you doing? You're like, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy, but it's part of change, right? And we all go through that to some degree. You may not necessarily move across the world, but, you know, most of us move towns or cities. We experience making new friends and changes in career. So when I'm going through a scary circumstance, when I'm worried about what the outcome might be, I always think to myself, what if this happens? And it's normally negative, but what if we flip the script to thinking, what if something positive happens? And a really cool example of how change can be super positive is my dad. I'm reminded of this all the time. He's American, my mom's Australian. They met, they fell in love, got married, moved to Australia. And it was at that point, my dad, he used to be a commercial diver. He used to sail the world. He had a clothing brand. He actually decided, okay, I'm going to change my career. And he decided to go into dentistry. He became a dentist. He didn't even start that until he was 30. And I was born just after he graduated. And that is such a cool reminder to me that change can be really, really powerful. As children, we're always told, don't do risky things. Color inside the lines. Don't color outside of the lines. Don't jump from there, because if you jump, you might break a bone. But what if we were instead told something different? What if we're told change can be really powerful? If you don't like the circumstance that you're in, you can take active steps to change. So many times I find myself, I'm in a situation. The perfect example is last week. I was feeling really overwhelmed. Emma, my producer, she's sitting right here. She saw me burst into tears and I was mortified. And I was like, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm just feeling drained. And she's like, well, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, I'm crying about it. But no, that's not the answer. The answer is to take active steps to change your mindset, to change how you're feeling. And for me, that meant taking some time off, taking some time to myself, taking some time to reset. And, so many times we're in these circumstances where feeling these things, but we're not actively taking steps to change, by just complaining. And the other thing is, if we're on a track that we don't like, it's never too late to hop off that track and get onto another one. And the thing is, change can be physical, but it can also be mental as well. It can be changing your mindset. It can be changing your environment. If you're in a space where you're feeling a certain way, getting into a new place can really change things for you. So changing your physical circumstances, that is probably the most scary, but the one that we can actively work on and that we should actively work on every single day is changing our mindset. And for me, that is trying to be more positive, trying to look at the positive side of things, to really be mindful about being joyful in all circumstances. And changing that mindset or that physical situation can really be a chance to develop as a person. Think about this. What if instead of being scared to leave your stable job, you have a stable job, it's a 9 to 5, whatever it is. What if instead of being scared to leave that stable job, you actually left it and you found your actual calling? What if you left this relationship that you're in where you're feeling drained and it's potentially toxic, they're not your person, but you're so comfortable where you are, you've been with them for so long, you have the same friend group. What if you knew it wasn't right? Instead of being scared to change, you actually found the love of your life. That's what happened for me. And I think really thinking about it that way is actually exciting. It makes it more exciting. It makes it way less scary. But the truth is, even in saying that, it's still going to be uncomfortable. It's inevitable. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. So there's a really old saying and it says, be the change you want to see. Now that to me is a really powerful quote, and I try to hold on to it at times when I'm feeling fearful of change, because so many times we get in our own head and we're like, I'm just one person. What I do doesn't matter. It only affects me. But that is not the truth at all. We all have an incredible amount of influence, not only on ourselves, on our situation, but also on other people who are around us. So when we change ourselves, we actually have a really, really big impact. And I think a really cool example of this is, I'm one of 6 kids. My mom, who stayed at home to raise us, was running a business for my dad from home. She decided, okay, my kids are growing up and they're starting to graduate. I want to now change my career and move into a different role. So she's like, I'm now putting all my efforts from just being a full-time mom and investing and sewing into these kids. Now I want to do a different role. And she decided she wanted to be an occupational therapist. So while she was raising us, she was doing online classes. She did it over 8 years. And she ended up graduating just after I did from high school, 2011. And she graduated as an occupational therapist. And I think that's pretty cool because she was like, I want to change. It took her 8 years to change. So many times we put this pressure on ourselves that, when we change, it has to be an overnight success. I changed careers and I'm like, I put so much pressure on myself. I'm like, I need to have a podcast that is meaningful. I want to help you guys. And then I put this pressure on myself to really produce it, but I wasn't ready to do that. The first couple of seasons of this, I was really pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I hate public speaking. It's something that I really struggle with. I've really been taking classes to get better. I've been using Skillshare, shout out to Skillshare. And, I've been how to storytell, how to articulate, how to speak better and to engage an audience. Because I have the information here, it's just harder for me to get out. So, it's something that you have to learn and you have to really work at. If you want to be successful, you need to sacrifice. And part of that sacrifice is to change. So you guys are probably wondering, Robbi, it's all good and well to talk about change and talk about your experiences, but how do you actually take that first step when it's so scary, when there's no light in the tunnel, when there's no next step? I don't know what's coming up. What next? How do I change? Well, I'm going to give you guys 10 tips that really helps me embrace change and totally shift my mindset around it. The first thing is understand that it is normal, it is necessary, and it is inevitable. The sooner that you understand that, the sooner that you're going to be able to embrace that and really just find your purpose and your calling. And it doesn't start with huge changes. It can be a small change. It can be, okay, I want to start dressing more like this person. Let's just add in a t-shirt here. Let's just add in a pair of jeans here. It doesn't have to be a full new wardrobe haul. Same with, I want to be a more positive person. Okay, that's going to take time from my day, every single day, reflecting, doing a gratitude journal. It's these little changes. It doesn't have to be all at once. So embracing it and understanding it and knowing that's inevitable is very important. When you start to make little changes, you start to understand that change isn't as horrible as you think. And it also makes it easier to make bigger changes in the future. The next point is to name and acknowledge the changes that you are experiencing. So have you ever had those moments when you're just feeling particularly overwhelmed and you don't exactly know why? I'm going to guess it's because you have a lot of transition and a lot of change going on in your life. And for me, recently it's been, we moved to New York City. We've had to find a whole new team that we're working with. We've had to find a new friend group. It's all of these things that kind of like go into making you feel that way. So being aware of what those changes are that you're experiencing is very important, because then when you know what they are, you can execute them better. The next thing is to claim your sphere of control. I feel like that needs to be a bumper sticker. I don't even have a car, but if I did, I would write that. Claim your sphere of control. Now, to me, what that means is controlling the things that you can control. We can't control so much of the things that go on around us. We can't control the way, other people treat us. We can't control the weather. We can't control a lot of things, but we can control certain things. And that can be our routine. It can be the way we react to things. So be aware of that and claim that sphere. It's really important. And next up is to separate yourself from the experience. Now, to me, this goes back to point 2. If you're separating yourself from an experience, you're stepping back and you'll be like, okay, this is actively what's going on in my life right now. You're taking a time to be reflective. And to me, the only way I can be reflective and to grow and to change is to actually take a step back and look at my situation and be aware of that. Point 5 is to maintain a routine if you can. Now, when you're going through huge transitions in life, the biggest ones are obviously like moving and relationships and friendships. Maintain the things that you can at home. So for me, that's having a routine. It's getting up at this time and going to the gym at this time and then doing my skincare and going through my routine. And because that gives me some stimulants of routine. And I think routine is very important, especially when you're going through large periods of change. When things are chaotic, when you don't have any control of anything else, having control of small things is actually really impactful. For me, there's nothing like I'm going through a crazy day. It's been long. Things are going wrong. Calls with this and You know what it's like. Like we've all had those days at work. I look forward to my routine. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym tonight and do this exercise class. That I'm going to come home and have a shower and do my skincare and make dinner. And it makes me feel like I have control of something, even though everything around me is spinning out of control. The next point is to focus on resilience. I think this is a really important one because we are braver than we know. We can get through this. We've gotten through it before. This is something that we can handle. Next up is ask for help. This is something that I struggled with for a really long time. I am very determined. I am very motivated, and I'm also very hard on myself, the way I speak to myself. And that is a great thing because I'm very driven, but it can also be a really hard thing because I'm not going to ask for help. Asking for help, it can change the game because there's people around us that are put there for a reason. They're wise. They can give us good advice. And that's why having a really good circle of people around us is important, because you know that when you ask for help, it's going to be met with a attitude of, let me help you with the best advice for you. And like good advice from sound people can really change a lot. My people that I go to for advice are, I have my best friend, Lauren. I speak to her every couple of days. She gives me great advice. I've got Alex. He again gives me great advice. My grandma and my mum and my dad, they're like my core people. So if I need advice, I'm going to go to them. It's important to ask for help and to seek that counsel because it can really change a lot. My only thought with that is make sure you're asking for the advice from the right people, because we all know that we have those friends that aren't going to give good advice. So make sure you're speaking to the right people. The next one is to celebrate growth. If you were in a job that you hated and you bit the bullet and you changed jobs or careers or whatever it was, award yourself for that. Celebrate that, because that is not easy. You've gotten to that step and it's not over yet. There's still more change ahead of you. So even though it might be hard, celebrate that choice. It's incredible. The fact that you even got to that point is incredible. So celebrate that. The next thing is to reflect on those changes that you've already made, because they're big already. Some of them might seem small to people, but they can be huge for others. That might be going from having a roommate to not having a roommate. That is a huge change. You're living a totally different lifestyle. You're now more independent and you're doing these other things. It might be walking down the aisle. It might be having a kid or moving towns. Whatever it is, those changes are huge and they're unique to you. And don't compare your changes or your journey to other people, because we all value different things and different changes hit many of us differently. So, for someone, something might be huge, and for someone else, it might might be really simple, but that goes to our uniqueness. So be aware of that journey. And last but not least, always practice gratitude. The thing is, so many times I've caught myself complaining about, missing dentistry and missing Australia and missing my family. But the fact that I even have the opportunity to be living in another country, to be doing another career that I love, that is so fulfilling, even though it's harder for me, I do find this job harder. I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for, each and every single one of you who watches this. And, I think being grateful changes everything, because it changes the way we look at a circumstance. And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier about changing our attitude around change and the what if, but what if I fail? I'm like, but darling, what if you fly? What if you fly? So this week, I hope that is something that you hold on to next time you find yourself saying, what if, about a changing situation or a circumstance. I hope that you, instead of saying, what if I fail? What if I go broke? What if I never find someone else? What if I never get another job? Or what if I can never do better? And change that up. Change that to, well, what if I found the career of my dreams? What if I find the love of my life? What if instead of falling and breaking a bone, I fly and I really succeed? It's going to be hard work, but I know that we can do it. I hope you guys resonated with this. This is something that has been a huge part of my life. I know that it's something we all experience, and it can be really scary and taxing. So comment below. Let me know what changes you've experienced. Have any of you moved across the world? That's a big one. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for listening. P.S. guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this content. And as always, I will see you guys very soon.